The shooting stopped at exactly 2200 hours on July 27th, 1953. One moment there were machine guns and mortars and artillery. The next moment, silence. Total, absolute, suffocating silence. After 3 years of constant noise, the quiet was louder than any explosion. We'd been told it was coming. The ceasefire, armistice, end of hostilities. They said to hold positions, not to advance, not to provoke. Said that at 2200 hours the war would end and we could go home. Said it like it was good news, like it was something to celebrate. But Robert Hayes died at 21:57 hours, 3 minutes before the ceasefire, 3 minutes before the shooting stopped. He took a Chinese bullet through the neck while we were sitting in our trench, waiting for the clock to run out. Bled out in my arms at 21:59. Died while I was telling him to hold on. Just 1 more minute, just 60 more seconds, and the war would be over. He didn't make it. 60 seconds was too long. I'm 33 years old now, and that minute, that last minute before the ceasefire, plays in my head every day, every goddamn day. Hayes gurgling, drowning in his own blood. Me pressing my hands against his neck, trying to stop it. The seconds ticking down. 2,158, 2,159, 2,200. Silence. And Hayes dead in my arms right as the war ended. They talk about the Korean War like it accomplished something, like it mattered. But we didn't win. We didn't lose. We just stopped shooting and went home, leaving the country divided exactly where it started. 3 years of fighting, 36,000 Americans dead. For what? To end up right back where we began? My name is Dave Mitchell, and I was a corporal in the 7th Infantry Division. I landed at Incheon in September 1950 when we thought we were winning. Fought all the way to the Yalu River when the Chinese came in and nearly destroyed us. Retreated back south through the coldest winter I've ever known. Then spent 2 years fighting back and forth over the same worthless hills until somebody decided to call it a draw. I grew up in rural Oregon, farm boy. Drafted in 1950 when I was 21. Didn't know where Korea was. Didn't care about communism or domino theories or any of that. But they said my country needed me, so I went. They trained us at Fort Lewis, shipped us to Korea, told us we were there to stop aggression, told us it would be quick, told us we'd be home by Christmas. That was 1950. I didn't get home until August 1953. 3 years in that frozen, bloody peninsula. 3 years watching friends die for hills we'd take and lose and take again. 3 years learning that war isn't about victory or defeat. It's about surviving until someone decides to stop killing. The last month before the ceasefire was the worst. Everyone knew the negotiations were happening at Panmunjom. Everyone knew the end was coming. But the fighting didn't stop. If anything, it got worse. Both sides wanted to control as much territory as possible before the lines froze. Wanted to grab one more hill, one more valley, one more piece of Korea to claim in the final deal. So we kept attacking, and the Chinese kept defending. And men kept dying for positions that wouldn't matter once the ink dried on the armistice. In July 1953, we were holding a position on what we called Hill 255, just a number on a map, a piece of high ground near the 38th parallel. No strategic value, no resources, just dirt and rocks and the corpses of men who died fighting over it 6 times already. The Chinese wanted it back. Launched an attack on July 25th. Heavy assault, mortars, machine guns, infantry. They hit us at dawn, overran our forward positions, pushed us back. We counterattacked in the afternoon, took back half the hill. By nightfall, we were dug in, exhausted, bleeding, holding a trench line halfway up. That's where we were when they told us about the ceasefire. Lieutenant Morrison gathered us that evening. 23 of us left in what used to be a 40-man platoon. Listen up. Armistice is signed. Ceasefire takes effect at 2200 hours tomorrow. That's 26 hours from now. Hold your positions. Do not advance. Do not provoke. Just hold. Someone asked, what if they attack? Defend yourselves, but don't advance. After 2200 tomorrow, it's over. We're going home. Going home. The words felt unreal. I'd been in Korea so long I'd forgotten what home meant. Oregon seemed like another planet, a place that existed in stories, not reality. But here it was, 26 hours. Just survive one more day and the war would end. Just keep breathing for 26 more hours. Should have been easy, should have been safe. Hold position, don't start anything, wait for the clock to run out. But war doesn't work that way. War doesn't care about clocks or deadlines or armistices. The Chinese attacked again at dawn on the 27th. Maybe they wanted one last push. Maybe they didn't believe the ceasefire would hold. Maybe they just wanted to kill more of us before the shooting stopped. They came up the hill in waves. We fought them back. Machine guns, mortars, grenades. The noise was incredible. The smoke was thick. Men were screaming, dying, bleeding into Korean dirt for a hill that would mean nothing in 16 hours. We held, barely. By noon, the Chinese pulled back, regrouped. We knew they'd come again. They always came again. The afternoon of July 27th, 1953, was the longest of my life. We sat in our trenches, checking weapons, redistributing ammunition, treating wounds, waiting, always waiting. The clock was running, and every minute felt like an hour. Hayes was in my squad. Robert Hayes from Tennessee, 20 years old. Kid should have been in college, not in a trench in Korea. But he'd been drafted same as me, shipped over same as me, survived same as me. For 2 years, we'd been in the same unit. Shared foxholes, shared rations, shared the terror of Chinese artillery and the frozen winters and the desperate firefights. Think it's really over? Hayes asked me around 1800 hours. 4 hours left. That's what they say. Think they'll attack again? I didn't know. The Chinese had to know about the ceasefire too. Had to know it would end in 4 hours. Would they risk men for 4 more hours of war? I don't know, I told him. Just keep your head down. The sunset was beautiful that evening. Orange and red across the Korean sky. Would have been peaceful if not for the smell of cordite and death. Would have been nice if not for the knowledge that men were probably going to die before it got dark. Around 2100 hours, 1 hour left, we heard movement. Chinese probing our lines, testing, seeing if we'd react. Morrison passed the word. Hold fire unless directly engaged. 1 hour, just 1 more hour. But the Chinese opened up. Machine gun fire from their positions, tracers cutting through the twilight. They were shooting at us with 1 hour left before the ceasefire. We returned fire. What else could we do? Let them kill us without fighting back. So we shot back. And they shot at us. And men died with less than an hour left before it all ended. A mortar round landed in the next trench over. I heard the explosion, heard the screaming. Medic went running over, came back shaking his head. 3 dead. Killed at 21:10 hours. 50 minutes before the war ended. Hayes was next to me, firing his M1 at muzzle flashes in the dark. This is insane, he yelled. 50 minutes. Why are they still shooting? Why were any of us still shooting? Why were men dying when everyone knew it would end in less than an hour? But that's war. War doesn't care about logic, doesn't care about clocks. It just keeps killing until someone makes it stop. 2,130 hours. 30 minutes left. The firing was getting sporadic. Both sides running out of enthusiasm for killing, just going through the motions. But the mortars kept coming. The machine guns kept chattering. Men kept dying. 2,145 hours. 15 minutes. I was counting down in my head. 15 minutes. 900 seconds. Then silence. Then home. Then it's over. Hayes tapped my shoulder. "Hey, Sarge, when we get home," that's when the bullet hit him. Sniper, single shot. Caught him in the neck just below his helmet. He dropped his rifle, grabbed at his throat. Blood poured between his fingers. So much blood. "Medic," I screamed. "Medic." But the medic was 3 trenches over, and Hayes was choking, gurgling, his eyes wide with panic and confusion. I pulled him down, pressed my hands against the wound, tried to stop the bleeding. My hands were instantly soaked with blood. Hot blood. Too much blood. "You're okay," I told him. "You're okay. Just hold on. Just hold on." He tried to talk. Couldn't. Just that horrible gurgling sound. He grabbed my arm, squeezed it. His eyes were asking me to help him, to save him, to do something. I couldn't do anything. Just hold him. Just keep pressure on the wound that was pumping his life out onto the floor of the trench. Just watch the clock. 2,157 hours. 3 minutes left. "Hayes, listen to me. 3 minutes. Just 3 more minutes and it's over. Just hold on. Just stay with me." His grip on my arm was weakening. His eyes were losing focus. There was so much blood. It was everywhere. On my hands, my uniform, the floor of the trench. The smell of it mixed with the cordite and the Korean dirt. 2,158 hours, 2 minutes. "Come on, Hayes. Come on, 2 minutes. You can do it. 2 more minutes." But he couldn't. I could feel him slipping, feel his body giving up. The gurgling was getting quieter. His chest was barely moving. The shooting was dying down. Both sides knew the time, knew it was almost over. The machine guns fell silent. The mortars stopped. It was like the whole war was holding its breath, waiting for the clock to strike 2020. 2,159 hours, 1 minute. 60 seconds, Hayes. 60 seconds, and you're going home. Stay with me. Just 60 more seconds. His hand fell away from my arm. His eyes went distant. The gurgling stopped. "No, no, 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 Hayes, Hayes. I shook him, slapped his face, kept pressure on the wound even though I knew it was pointless, even though I could see he was gone. 2,200 hours. Silence, complete, total silence. The shooting stopped. All of it. Every gun, every mortar, every rifle, like someone had flipped a switch. One moment it was war, the next moment it was over. And Robert Hayes was dead in my arms. Men started cheering in other positions, cheering that they'd survived, that it was over, that they were going home. I could hear them yelling, crying, celebrating. I just sat there holding Hayes. His blood was cooling on my hands. His eyes were staring at nothing. He died at 21:59, 1 minute before the ceasefire, 60 seconds short of surviving. The medic finally reached us, took one look and shook his head. "He's gone, Sarge. I'm sorry." 1 minute, I said. "He died 1 minute before it ended." "I know, I'm sorry." What good was sorry? What good was anything? Hayes had survived 2 years in Korea. Survived the Chinese human wave attacks. Survived the freezing winter. Survived 100 firefights. Survived until the last minute of the war. And then died anyway. We laid him out in the trench, covered him with a poncho. Left him there while we secured the position, while officers confirmed the ceasefire was holding, while everyone processed what had just happened. The war was over, but Hayes was dead, and the contradiction made no sense. How could it be over, and yet men had just died? How could there be peace when there were fresh bodies? They came for Hayes in the morning, Graves registration. Took him away with the others who died in those last hours. 8 men from our battalion killed between 2,000 and 2,200 on July 27th. 8 men who died after the armistice was signed, but before the shooting stopped. 8 men who almost made it. I couldn't process it, couldn't understand how we'd just stopped. How one moment we were killing each other and the next moment we were just sitting there, looking at each other across no man's land, not shooting anymore. The Chinese were still there, still in their positions on the other side of the hill. We could see them. They could see us. But nobody was shooting. The war was over. We'd called a draw, agreed to disagree, went back to the lines we'd started with 3 years earlier. 3 years, 36,000 American dead, 100,000 South Korean dead, God knows how many Chinese and North Korean dead, all to end up exactly where we started, all for nothing. They started pulling us back from the line within days, rotating units out, sending us to rear areas, processing us to go home. The war was over, they said. You did your duty, they said. You can go home now, they said. But I couldn't leave Hayes behind. Couldn't accept that he'd died 1 minute before the ceasefire. And now I was going home and he wasn't. The unfairness of it was crushing, suffocating. If he'd been shot at 2201 after the ceasefire, maybe they would have stopped to help him. Maybe he would have survived. But he died at 2159 when we were still at war, when a Chinese sniper was still hunting targets, when 60 seconds made the difference between life and death. I started having nightmares on the ship home, reliving those last minutes, watching the clock tick down, feeling Hayes's blood on my hands, hearing that horrible gurgling. 2157, 2158, 2159, over and over. I'd wake up at 2159, convinced I could save him this time if I just acted faster, pressed harder, did something different. But in the dreams, just like in reality, he always died at 2159. The ship docked in San Francisco in August 1953. We were heroes, they said. We'd stopped communist aggression. We'd defended freedom. They gave us medals and parades and said we should be proud. But I wasn't proud. I was empty. Hayes had died for nothing. We'd fought for 3 years for nothing. Thousands of men had died to maintain a stalemate, to keep Korea divided exactly where it had started. We hadn't won. We hadn't even accomplished anything. We'd just killed each other until everyone was tired of killing. I've been home for a year now, back in Oregon, back on the farm, back to the life I had before Korea. Except it's not the same life. I'm not the same person. The boy who left in 1950 didn't come back. Something else came back wearing his face. People ask me about Korea, about the war, about what it was like. I tell them it was cold, that we fought hard, that I'm glad to be home. I don't tell them about Hayes. Don't tell them about watching a man die 1 minute before the ceasefire. Don't tell them that I still see his face every time I close my eyes. My parents say I'm different, quieter, distant. They're right. How do you explain that you spent 3 years in hell for nothing? That you watched friends die for hills that got abandoned the next week? That you killed men who were probably just like you, drafted, scared, trying to survive, all for a war that ended in a draw? I can't sleep normally anymore. I wake up at 21:59 every night, like clockwork. Bolt awake, heart racing, convinced I'm back in that trench with Hayes bleeding out in my arms. I'll check the clock, 11:59 p.m., and just sit there until it turns to midnight, until I pass that minute, until I survive that minute that Hayes didn't. My father says I should try to forget, says the war is over, I should move on. But how do you forget? How do you move on from watching someone die 60 seconds before they could have been saved? How do you accept that the difference between life and death was just the arbitrary moment someone decided to sign a piece of paper? The nightmares are constant, not just about Hayes, about all of it. The Chinese attacks, the frozen winter, the men who died taking hills we abandoned, the pointlessness of it all. But Hayes is always there at 2:15:9, dying in my arms while the clock runs down. I tried to find his family, write them, tell them he died bravely, that he didn't suffer, that it was quick. All lies. He suffered. It wasn't quick. And there was nothing brave about dying from a random bullet 1 minute before the war ended. But what else could I tell them? That their son's death was meaningless, that 60 more seconds would have saved him, that the war ended right after he died and accomplished nothing? I wrote the letter 6 times, never sent it. What words could possibly make it better? The ceasefire is still in effect. Korea is still divided. The war never officially ended, just paused. We didn't win. We didn't lose. We just stopped shooting and went home. Left Korea broken, divided, frozen at the 38th parallel where we started. 36,000 Americans died for that stalemate, including Robert Hayes, who died at 2,159 on July 27, 1953. 60 seconds short of surviving. I'm 33 years old. I should have decades ahead of me, should build a life, get married, have kids. But I'm stuck at 2,159 on July 27, 1953. Can't move forward. Can't leave that trench. Can't stop holding Hayes while he dies and the clock runs down and the war ends 1 minute too late. People talk about the Korean War like it's over, like it ended when the shooting stopped. But it's not over. Not for me. Not for the guys who made it home but left pieces of themselves in those frozen hills. Not for the families of men who died in a war that accomplished nothing. The shooting stopped at exactly 2200 hours on July 27th, 1953. One moment there were machine guns and mortars and artillery. The next moment, silence. But Robert Hayes died at 2,157, 3 minutes before the ceasefire, 3 minutes before it ended, 3 minutes before he could have been saved. And I'm still holding him, still pressing my hands against his neck, still counting down those last 3 minutes. 2,157, 2,158, 2,159, every day, every night, for the rest of my life. The war ended at 2,200 hours, but for me it's always 2,159, always 3 minutes before the ceasefire, always holding Hayes, always watching him die, always knowing that 60 more seconds would have saved him, always living in that minute between war and peace when nothing made sense and everything was lost. They gave me a medal, Combat Infantryman badge, Korean Service Medal, said I'd served with honor, said I'd defended freedom, said I'd done my duty, but I couldn't do the one thing that mattered. Couldn't keep Hayes alive for 3 more minutes. Couldn't save him from dying right before the shooting stopped. Couldn't make those 60 seconds go faster. The war ended. We went home. Korea stayed divided. Nothing changed. Nothing was won. Nothing was accomplished, except Robert Hayes died. And I have to live with that. Have to live knowing that 3 more minutes would have saved him. That the war ended right after he died. That his death meant nothing in a war that meant nothing. The shooting stopped at 2,200 hours, but it never really stopped. Not for me. It's always 2,159. Always.